Hi class, we're going to talk about chapter 24, economic growth and the wealth of nation. This chapter. So this chapter is also very simple, or it's not that simple, but it's very straightforward. So it's not a much hard concept. It's actually an easy chapter to read. You don't have to spend too much time on it. Just read through a couple of times and then watch my video. That should be enough. Okay. All right. So let's get started. So GDP. We talked about this in previous chapters. So what is GDP? GDP is the gross domestic product. It measures everything produced by the economy. But that's the bigger picture. But to see how rich our poor country is, we also need to look at what is the GDP per capita, which is the per personal GDP. So if you have a very high GDP per capita, that means the standard of living is good. The country is pretty rich. But if your GDP per capita is pretty low, then this country might be pretty poor, and then they have very low standard of living. And then to show economic growth, we're looking at how much is the growth rate of the GDP per capita. So if this is increasing, then we have economic growth. But if you have this decreasing, well, the economy is in trouble. Okay, so let's look at some numbers for the U.S. economy. Well, actually, this is between rich and poor countries. All right, so two examples here. We have a poor country whose per capita GDP is only 1875 per year, and then we have a rich country whose per capita GDP is 40,651. So huge difference over here. But besides the money side, there's also a huge difference in other areas as well. Now, the next number is called infant mortality. That shows you just how many newborn babies out of every 1,000 baby will die before the first birthday. For the poor country, about 53 out of every 1,000 new baby will die before the first birthday. But for a rich country, the number is only 4. So when a baby is born in a rich country, their chance of survival is higher. And if you look over 1 year for the 5-year mortality rate, for the poor country is 76. So 76 out of every 1,000 baby will die, but for the rich country is only 5. So again, much lower number. So baby have a higher chance of survival, toddlers too, in the rich country than the poor country. And then the life expectancy is also higher for the rich country. For rich country, they expect to live to age 81, but the poor country only get to 62. And then there are many reasons behind that too. For one, number of physicians, number of doctors, more for the rich country than poor country. And then they have more access to improved water, more access to improved sanitation, more access to improved electricity. So all these improvements over here are making life expectancy better or higher for the rich country than the poor country. So all this number over here, you guys can take a look at it. All this category will show that not only because the money is more for the rich country, but because the high per capita GDP that bring all this other benefit for the rich country. Okay, so that's what made the economy of the country rich or poor. Now, for historical growth for the economies, if you look at the world history, for the longest time in human history, most people on Earth are all doing I just can't pronounce his name right. Subsistence living. That means they're just barely surviving. They're producing whatever they need by themselves, not much else. Okay, but about 1700 or so, we had this industrial revolution. That with better technologies, better equipment, the economy started taking off. So if you look at our GDP per capita in the world, see how this number is pretty steady, pretty flat for the most part of the last 2,000 years, and about 1700 it shoot off. It become increasing exponentially, and that's because of the industrial revolution. So it's more capitals, better technologies, the economy grow faster and faster. Okay, all right. So let's look at another example between poor country and rich country. So let's compare U.S. and Libya, Liberia. So in 2000, well, actually in U.S. in 1800 U.S. So about 200 years ago, the GDP, the per capita GDP is about $2,000. But in Liberia, the per capita GDP in 2012, which is only 6 years ago, it was still only 1,200. So rich country 200 years ago is even wealthier than a poor country today. So there's a huge discrepancy between poor and rich country in the world today. And then this number here, this chart shows you the actual income number, the actual per capita GDP between poor and rich country. So for Western Europe, the average is $30,000. For US, the average is 43,000. But say for Africa, it's only $2,200. And then for India, it's only 2,900, so they're lagging behind. Even China is pretty low too. But even though each country or each party seeing a significant increase from 1900 to 2000, but compare them to the rich countries such as US, it's still much lower. Okay, so they still have a long way to go. All right, so even for US, the growth rate wasn't always consistent, that the growth rate changes from year to year. But the general trend is that before the Industrial Revolution, the economy was pretty stagnating. It wasn't growing at all. But as 1800 turns around, the economy grew faster and faster and faster, and especially after the World War II. Okay. All right, so one way to calculate or to estimate our economic growth rate, you're going to use your percentage change in nominal GDP minus percentage change in price level, so that's the inflation, okay, minus population, and then what equals to, that's your percentage change in the per capita real GDP. Now, by the way, this is just an estimate, okay, so it's not really how we calculate numbers, but just an estimate. But notice how over here, that every time you have inflation, that will negatively impact our real GDP. Anytime you have population growth, that will negatively impact our real GDP. And the reason why the population growth might hurt the economy is that if you have more people to share the same pie, then each person getting a smaller slice of the pie. So that's why population is bad. And then one example you guys can think about the Chinese economy for the last 30 years. Now, for the last 30 years, the Chinese economy has been growing very fast. And then one reason is because this one-child policy. So with one-child policy, the Chinese government has been able to limit the growth rate of the population, which means they have a lower number of pie to share, a lower number of slices to share, than each person getting a bigger share of the pie. Okay, so those will negatively impact your real GDP. So for our U.S. economy, so this is from 2013 to 2014, our nominal GDP increased by 3.9%. So that. And then you take away the inflation 1.5%, you take away population 0.7%, so our per personal GDP increased by 1.7%. So that's still not bad. That's still pretty good. That means the economy is growing. So anytime your real GDP per capita is increasing, that shows you economic growth. Anytime it's decreasing, that shows you economic contraction, which is bad, very bad. All right, so this is called a rule of 70. Just shows you how long it would take for the number to double. And then so many economists use this as a simple rule of thumb to see how fast the economy is growing. So roughly speaking, how long it would take for the economy to double, you're going to take your number 70 divided by the growth rate x, whatever the answer is. That will show you how many years, roughly speaking, it will take the economy to double. So if you have a growth rate of 2%, then you take 70 divided by 2, that will equal to 35. So which means if your economy every year grow by 2%, it will take about 35 years for the economy to double. Okay, so just take any number, use 70 divided by that number, that will give you how many years it will take for the money or for the economy to double. Okay, I'm gonna skip this. I'm gonna skip this. Not important. So let's suppose the economy growing at 0%, it will never double. If the economy growing at 1%, it would take 70 years. If the economy growing at 4%, take about 17.5 years to double the economy. So the faster the growth rate is, then the lower time it will take for the economy to double. All right, so here's some real numbers from 1950 to 2010. So for the last 60 years, how economy has been changing. Some economy has been really thriving, but some economy has been lagging behind. If you look at the Democratic Republic of Congo, their economy on average for the last 60 years didn't grow, actually went down by 1.3%. So back in 1950s, their per personal GDP was 863, which is already pretty bad, but today is about 394, so even worse. And that is the growth pattern for the economy, so it has been decreasing. Now there's been many reasons why that is. There has been some natural disaster, but the most significant reason why the economy has been going down for Congo was because of war and genocide. Okay, so nothing's going on over there. It's a very dangerous country. And then Haiti economy has been going down too. You guys probably don't hear much about Haiti because there's not much going on over there except hurricanes or earthquake. Okay, so Haiti economy is also very bad, very dangerous country. And then North Korea, it went up by 0.5% per year. But if you see this chart over here, looks like it's increasing for a while, and then it plateaued for a while, and it has been decreasing dramatically. So the economy for North Korea was doing pretty good at the first part of this from 1950s to about 1970s. And then from 1970s to about 1990s, economy has been pretty steady. And then all of a sudden by 1990s, economy went down. It went way down. It has been staying down for the last 20-some years. Okay. And then if you want to know what the reason is, you can do a little research. Go to your history book. Look at the part about the Korean Peninsula, how the economy has been struggling for North Korea, and then there are sanctions regarding to the nuclear weapon. That will show a big reason why economy has been decreasing for North Korea. And then you have slow growing economy. So Lebanon, Rwanda, Nigeria. So even though this economy is increasing, but it's growing at a slow rate. So 1% per year. That means for this economy to double their GDP, it would take 70 years to double GDP. And the US, this is a normal growth rate, so about 2%. So 2% per year is pretty normal. So most of the developed country, so such as US, Australia, UK, they all have this pretty steady growth rate around 2% per year. So you see how very steadily each country is growing up at 2% per year. So you don't see this huge up and down, but a steady, very upward trend. That means the economy is getting better every year, about 2% per year. Now, and then you have the fast-growing economy. So fast-growing economy, such as country like China, for the last 50 years has been growing at a 4.9% per year. South Korea, 5.5% per year. Those are amazing numbers. And then even Singapore at 4.4%, even though it's lower than China and South Korea, but today Singapore's economy is up at par compared to US economy. The Singapore economy is doing very, very good. South Korea economy, even though it's still a little behind the US economy, but they are catching up fast. Because the economy is growing very fast. And for China too, see how the Chinese economy has been pretty flat, right? And then all of a sudden went up. So that turnaround is about 1978. Okay, we're gonna talk more about it in the later chapter, in the later part of this chapter, why that is. Now let me show you a picture here. So this is a picture of Shanghai for the last 20 years. So the picture above in black and white, that's your 1990 Shanghai. The picture below is 2015 Shanghai. So 25-year difference. But guys, I want you to look at this little island right here. This is the same island as this one right here. So 20 some years ago, that island was flat. There was nothing on it. Now today, if you guys ever visit Shanghai, you're going to see this huge island with many tall buildings on it, and then most of the tallest building in China, also in Asia, in the world, they're in Shanghai. Now today, I think there's one more building. They just built a new one back in 2017. It's about this high. Okay, so even taller than this one over here. So the reason why it's growing fast because the economy for China has been taking off for the last 30-some years now. So that's why Shanghai is doing very, very good. And then one thing about Shanghai is that the housing price is very expensive. Now, a couple years ago, I went to Shanghai. I actually went to this island over here. It's very modern. The structures, the buildings over there, is very contemporary. I would say it's better than New York. It's better than Manhattan. And the reason why, because Manhattan was built almost 200 years ago. So many of the street from Manhattan was built before the modern age. So they didn't account for the increase of traffic. But if you go to Shanghai in this new island, I think it's called Pudong. In Pudong, the streets are very wide. The buildings are very modern, very tall. It's actually very clean over there. But the only problem is that the housing price can be very, very expensive. So how much would cost you to buy like a 2-bedroom apartment on this island? You can buy a mansion in Texas. Okay, so it's a huge discrepancy in the housing price. All right. So this shows you U.S. economy from U.S. numbers from 1960 to 2010. So for the last 50 years, life expectancy has been growing. Number of physicians has been growing. Number of average school year has been growing. Portion of income spending on food has been decreasing, because when our household have more income now, we're going to spend a smaller portion of that on food and a bigger portion on something else. Average work week has been decreasing. People working less now, making more money. Lower percentage of our labor force are in manufacture or agriculture. So they're more in the more service industry, and home ownership also went up. So each one of this category here shows an increase or improvement of the U.S. economy. But if you just look beyond the numbers, because number doesn't show you all the information, let's look at this number over here. So the home ownership. So for home ownership, it shows a slight increase of home ownership in America. It just that's a 5.5 percentage increase. It's not much, but that is actually a lot as an entire countrywide. And also the quality of home has been increasing. So the number here doesn't show you the quality. So if you look at a typical house back in 1960 and 2010, the house has been bigger. The average house is about 2,400 square feet in 2010, only 1,200 in 2011 in 1960. You have more number of bedrooms, more number of bathroom, and it is also central air conditioner. Okay, so not only has the ownership increased for the housing, but we have been buying bigger and better homes, so people are better off. Okay, and also for cars, the cars, if you compare the car in 1960 and 2010, we have better cars. And then the price is higher, so we're doing much better than before. Okay, and then TV is cheaper and better. So all these numbers here indicating that 2010 is much better than 1960. And reason why? Because economic growth. The economy is growing. The economy is getting better. All right, so there are 3 reasons why economy is growing. So there are resource, technology, and institution. So first, let's look at resource. So anytime when the economy has more resource available, economy will grow. So this resource, if you look at our factory productions, this would be your land, labor, and capital. This would be land and labor. So for land, this is all the natural resource in the land. So in US, such as coal, actually this is not important anymore because we're decreasing our coal production. Oil in Saudi Arabia, huge importance. And the reason why Saudi is so rich today is because of oil. Imagine if tomorrow you take all the oil away from Saudi, their country will be one of the poorest country in the world. Okay, because their economy relies on solely oil. And then lumber for Canada, many of the trees they cut out in Canada, they turn to lumber. So all those resources are making the economy better for each country. So just by having land is not that important because what you need more than land is the natural resource on the land. And if you look at the GDP density over here, see over here, there's almost nothing going on. That's the Sahara Desert, right? There's over here nothing going on. That's the Australian desert, and there's here nothing going on. That's the tundra in Canada. But I want you guys to look at this part over here. That's Alaska. So even though there's not much going on, but it's still producing a lot of oil over there. Okay. All right, so labor is also part of resource. That if the economy has more labor, the economy will get better. But what's more important than just labor is called effective labor. That you need to have educated or trained workforce to do the high skill high paid jobs. So laborers need to be trained, need to be educated to perform more high-end jobs. Therefore, GDP will increase, and the per capita income also increases. So to do that, to have this better trained, more educated labor force, we need education and job training for everybody. So to another way to improve the economy is to offer more training for everybody. Then next, capital. So if you have more capitals, this will also improve our economy. But this capitals, this is your machines, your tools, your bridges, your road. So all those physical capitals we have, all those physical capitals we can produce, those will all help our economy in the future. So your land, labor, capital all increases, this will help our economy improve. Now next. Also, you remember that for capital and growth, even though capital is an important part of the economic growth, but it's not the only part. So sometimes if you just have more capital, but you don't have a market to build to work for it, or if you don't have a labor force to supply it, that wouldn't do you any good. And then let me give you an example about Iraq. So back in 2015, the U.S. Corps of Engineers they went to Iraq and then they want to build like a chicken factory for Baghdad, so just outside the capital. So the U.S. Army Corps engineer actually spent $3 million. They built a chicken factory. They can produce like slaughter chickens, clean the chickens, and then package them, just like the one you buy from your grocery store that's in the package. But the problem is, the problem was that when they produce all the chickens in the factory, the city of Baghdad couldn't afford to sell them. It's not because they're expensive. It's because that once you package a chicken like that, you need to have reliable electricity to keep the chicken at the right temperature. But because they don't have a reliable, source of electricity, they have blackout very often, that they will lose electricity. So that chicken plant was actually left unused because there's just no way to use it. So that's why just by having more capitals, but the wrong kind of capital, wouldn't do you any good. Okay, all right. Next, technology. So if you have a better technology, this will also help the economy improving very fast. So if you look at Henry Ford assembly line back in 1920s, that we allow each worker to only do one task and become the master of it, and then we train worker faster, so they become our productive labor, and then we can improve our production time and also reduce mistakes, and therefore make the production faster. Right? So that's also technology. So by having more technologies, we can allow our economy to grow faster, to have more GDP per capita. And then another thing about U.S. economy, and next time you guys go to Home Depot, go to the yard section, look for something called a Roundup. Now, Roundup is produced by Monsanto. It's a weed killer. It will kill all the weed, but Monsanto also produces corns, so genetically modified corns and soybeans. So and cotton too. They produce a lot of farm good. So what it does that farming can be very labor intensive, and then one of the biggest costs for laborers is that they have to clean up all the weed, all the unwanted grass. So if you do it by hand, it's very labor intensive, it costs a lot of money. But if you use pesticide, it will kill off all the weed, but it might also kill your corn and soybean and cotton. So what Monsanto did, genetically produced this new corn that it will survive Roundup. So Roundup will kill everything else except corn and soybean and cotton. So that made our production cheaper, more efficient. So now the US were the number one producer for corn, number one producer for soybean, number one producer for cotton. Okay, so that's also technology helping our US economy. And then another thing you can look at it is the production from milk. So for the last 50 years, actually for the last almost 100 years, the number of dairy cows has been decreasing. So we don't have that many cows in the economy anymore, but our milk production has been increasing. So we have less number of cows, but each cow produces more milk. And reason why? Because technology. Okay. I know you guys don't think about this that often because who cares about cows, right? We just buy the milk from the store. But there has been a lot of technological advancement in the milk productions. Okay, so if you guys want to make some money, do this. Go to a dairy farm, learn how to do it, become a master for it, and then go to another country, become cattle farmer. You can make some pretty good money by producing just milk. Okay, not in America. America is too competitive. You don't make much money. But if you go to other country, you can make pretty good money. All right. So technology is good, but technology is not only. It's not the only answer. I mean, imagine if you have the same technology given to US and then somewhere in Africa. Why does US still grow faster? Because today information for technology travel very fast, right? So if US has been growing for the last 50 years, then shouldn't other countries grow as well? Because technology is available for most countries out there. So reason why that is not happening is the last part. It's called institution. So in 1950s, Liberia is wealthier than Taiwan. But today, Taiwan is almost 20 times more wealthier than Liberia. So what happened? Well, government happened. Sometimes when you have the wrong type of government or the wrong type of leaders, they can not only slow down your growth, actually make you decrease in your economic activities. So there are institutions for government. So what they do, they're important for the economy to offer stable economic conditions, introducing laws, introducing regulations, introducing education that can help the economy, also provide a more friendly environment for investment from outside investors. So to have the important institution for economic growth, there are 7 factors over here. And let's go over each one. So first one is called a political stability. That you must have a very stable politics. The government must be very stable. But if you're changing government every couple of years, then you got a problem. So for example, for Liberia, if you have a government revolt or revolution or what's it called, military coup, the government change hand every couple of years, then nobody want to have a long-term investment in the country anymore. Because let's suppose I sign an agreement with one government, and a couple years later the government's overthrown, and then my contract's not good anymore. Then why even bother, right? So one reason is that the political stability is very important for a good economic conditions in the economy. Now, if you look at the rule of law compared to our per capita income, the better rule of law you have, the higher the average income is. But if you don't have a rule of law, then your economy is very bad. So if you look at many struggling economies in Africa, one of the biggest problems they have is this rule of law. It's hard to, they might not have the law in place, or sometimes they have the law in place, but they don't have the means to enforce the law. So rule of law is very bad. Okay. Next is that we have to ensure private property right. That to make sure that what is yours, and what is not yours is not yours. Okay. So there's one example listed in the book. It's about a village in China. It's called Xiaogang in China. In 1978, or actually before 1978, all the farms in China was owned by the Chinese government. So the land was all operated by something called a commune. So commune is when this work with commune. So commune is when the farmers group together, and then let's imagine that each village has 10 farmers, and 10 farmers will share the same land, and then everybody do the same thing on the same land together, and then by end of the year we share our productions. Well, that might sounds pretty good because you can use each person's expertise to produce their crops on the same land, but you have to remember that each person is very selfish. So if you let everybody share the production, also share the reward, then I don't want to do hard work anymore. Because if I do hard work, then what's the point? Because for all the hard work I do, by the end of the year, I gotta share with somebody else. So in 1978, what the villager in Shaogang did, they secretly divided the land up. So they signed a little agreement over here with 18 families, and the 18 family all decided that we're going to split the land up. That so each family has to have their own land, so there's own private property, and then you can do whatever you want, but make sure once you finish, you're gonna first pay the government for their quota, so for your required production, and then what's left over is yours. You don't share with anybody else, so you keep your own profit. So once that happened, once you had this private property right, the production for Shaogang in 1 year was more than the previous 5 year combined. So production went way up. Now at first, the villager was worried because they are breaking the law at the time because it wasn't allowed. So when they signed this agreement over here, the last part it says, if anybody is arrested by the government, or if anybody is sentenced to death in the government, then anybody else who's left behind, they must raise the other people's children until they're 18 years old. Okay, so this is like this is like a death agreement, right? So if I die, you make sure to raise my family until my kids are 18. So, but this worked, and then once this was publicized, that China under the new leadership decided to make an example of this because this really worked. So ever since then, for the last 30 years, there's been more private property ownership in China. That's one reason why the economy for China has been growing very fast. Tremendously fast for the last 20-30 years now, and then the average growth rate in China for the last 30 years was around 9% per year. Okay, that's almost unheard of. All right, so next we need to have a stable money and price, that we cannot have inflation is too high, because too high inflation or money is worthless, and nobody wants to invest in the economy anymore. So in the US, our Federal Reserve, or it's also called the Fed, or Federal Reserve, is in charge to monitor our money supply, to monitor our inflation, to make sure our money and the price are very stable. So with a stable money and price, we can ensure a more stable, friendly investment market. Okay, so make sure the economy is growing fast. Economy is growing stable. Okay. You know what? Let me give you an example. That's not the case. Back in 2008 in Zimbabwe was having record inflation. Then in Zimbabwe, in 2008, their inflation rate was over 11 million%. The money was worthless. So you know what happened in Zimbabwe in 2008? The economy was going down. It was going way down. Because the money was worthless. Nobody wanted to invest in Zimbabwe anymore. So their loanable fund was almost non-existing. Nobody wants to save money anymore, because why save money? If you save your money in the bank, not only you might get the money back, but once you get it back, it will be much less than what you saved before. So nobody was saving money, nobody was doing investment, nobody was doing business expansions. So there was no economic growth in Zimbabwe. But in US, we didn't have that problem. The economy is very stable, money is very stable, price is very stable. So it give our investors sense of security to expand the business and have more economic growth. All right, next we need to have a very competitive market. Now, to be competitive, that means we offer each companies a chance to compete in the economy. So we're gonna make monopolies illegal. We're gonna make any type of big mergers illegal. So keep the company a little bit small on a smaller side. So make the economy more competitive. With more competitive, we're encouraging innovations. So more technologies, more ideas are being developed in the economy. So that's good. Okay, that's one thing government can do. All right, we also need efficient tax. So every country has a tax, but the problem with tax is that if you charge too much tax, then business will go away. The companies will go away. Investment will go away. So you don't want to tax too high, and also you don't want to have something called an import tariff. With import tariff, this will make even though it will make the foreign produced good more expensive, but you know who's hurting? it's the domestic consumers who are hurting. And also you're impeding innovation in the economy. Okay, so we need a more efficient tax, the right kind of tax that can charge what you need just enough, so you wouldn't hurt your business communities in return. Okay, and next one is international trade. That we need to promote more trade. The government need to promote more trade. In America, we have something called NAFTA. Actually, we had something called NAFTA. Right now, President Trump is renegotiating NAFTA. Who knows what's going to happen? Okay, but trade is good. Don't listen to what's being said in the political environment right now. But trade is good. So every country can benefit with more trade, because if you're trading, you can have countries specialize and have more good between countries, and then all countries are better off when they trade. Now, when I say that everybody benefit from trade, I don't mean individual people benefiting from trade, that you're going to have always winners and losers from trade. But overall, the benefit for the winners are more than the losses from the losers. Okay, so countries will specialize and then benefit from trade. Now, we also need to make sure there are a free flow of fund cross borders. That not only do you need to have investors at home to supply your loanable fund, we also need investors from overseas to supply our loanable fund. So countries, there's one term that you're gonna hear this in the business class. It's called direct foreign investment. So it's that many developing countries such as China, Vietnam, Cambodia, even country in Africa such as Nigeria, South Africa, Morocco, Egypt. So they're all encouraging direct foreign investment. They don't have enough loanable fund in the country, so they encourage other foreign investors to bring their money into their country and then develop their economy. So we need to have a free flow of fund across borders, so allow more money into the economy to improve our investment. Okay, all right, so guys, that's this chapter. Have any question, let me know, and I will see you guys for chapter 26. All right, bye bye.